In New York's glittering Times Square, colorful signs stretched to the sky and crowds of people flowed through the streets. The city never slept. Business people in suits, tourists carrying shopping bags, street artists performing. And in the middle of all this crowd, there was a little boy that no one noticed. Jack was 10 years old and his life was going through a tough test. His mother had passed away years ago due to an illness and he had never known his father. He spent most of his nights on a park bench or on the stairs of a building. He was hungry. His eyes caught the illuminated signs of luxurious restaurants. People were laughing inside, eating hot meals and having pleasant conversations. Jack stopped in front of a large glass restaurant. He pressed his nose against the glass and watched the food being served inside. Fried steaks, steaming soups, desserts. His stomach growled. Gathering his courage, he headed for the door and stepped inside. However, in just a few seconds, the restaurant manager, dressed in a stylish suit, approached him with firm steps. "Hey, you! You can't come in here," he said harshly. Jack raised his head and looked at the man's face with frightened eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm just really hungry. Can I have a plate of food?" he whispered. The people in the restaurant had gone silent. Some were looking at Jack in surprise, while others turned their heads as if they were uncomfortable. The manager frowned. "This place is not for beggars. Get out now," he shouted. Jack's eyes filled with tears. He was hungry and hopeless. But before he could finish his sentence, someone sitting in the far corner of the restaurant rose from his chair. All eyes turned to him. The man was in his 40s, tall, wearing a stylish suit and had a strong aura. He got up from the table, walked slowly over to Jack and smiled. "Leave the boy alone," he said in a calm but authoritative voice. The restaurant manager was taken aback. "But sir, this boy is here." The man held up his hand to stop him. Then he knelt down to Jack's eye level. "What's your name, son?" he asked gently. Jack blinked. "Jack," he whispered. The man nodded. "Jack, you said you were hungry, so you're my guest tonight." The people in the restaurant watched in surprise. Who was this man? Why was he doing this? The man gently took Jack's hand and seated him at his own table. Then he turned to the waiter and spoke in a serious voice. "Bring this boy your best food and show him the respect he deserves." The waiter nodded in surprise and headed towards the kitchen. Soon the best quality food began to arrive at the table. Jack's eyes filled with tears as he saw the hot food in front of him. He took his first bite slowly, and at that moment, tears rolled down his cheeks. The man noticed Jack's emotion and continued talking to him. "So, Jack, where do you live?" he asked. Jack bowed his head. "Nowhere. I lost my mother. I never knew my father. I'm living on the streets." The expressions on the faces of the people in the restaurant began to change. This boy, whom they had looked down on a moment ago, was actually struggling to survive. The man took a deep breath and gently touched Jack's shoulder. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "From now on, you're my guest." That night, Jack didn't just eat. That night, his life changed. The man offered him a warm home, an education, and a new beginning. However, the real shocker happened the next day. The restaurant manager and the waiter were shaken by a news story that hit the newspaper headlines. "Billionaire businessman William Anderson adopts starving street boy." Yes, the man who saved Jack was one of the most famous businessmen in New York. He ran one of the largest charities in the city. No one in the restaurant had noticed at the time, but now everyone was talking about this grand gesture. That restaurant? It was no longer just a place that served wealthy customers, but also a place that opened its doors to children in need. Because sometimes all it took was a little compassion to change a person's life,